It was 50 years ago yesterday that the Beatles released their first album, and it was back in 1964 that Time magazine photographer Henry Grossman got what turned out to be the assignment of a lifetime. He was sent to shoot the Beatles' first appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show. That led to 4 years as the band's unofficial photographer. And now, almost half a century later, comes a book. Places I Remember, My Time with the Beatles, features 1,000 of Grossman's images from those heady days. It's a limited edition, priced at a very impressive $495. Henry Grossman, welcome. I love what you said just before we came on the air, which is when you saw this book, you realized actually you were a pretty good photographer.
Photojournalist.
Yeah.
Photographer I knew, but photojournalist I didn't quite understand.
But when you got that first assignment at the Ed Sullivan Show, you weren't even a fan of rock music.
Not at all. I never listened to rock music. I sort of turned the dial because I was interested in opera and classical music, symphonic. I became a fan of the Beatles themselves, not of the music.
What kind of access did you get?
Total access. As far as I know, I was never restricted. I became friends with them, so I went with them to all over the place, visited their homes.
Mm-hmm. You took 7,000 pictures of the Beatles over the years, of those 4 years. Let's talk about some of your favorites. I want to look at a photo of George Harrison from 1965, which you say is your most favorite of all these images.
Yeah, this was, we were having breakfast in Nassau. George came in, he was still in his pajamas, had just awakened. Mm-hmm. I wasn't taking pictures at breakfast, or not intending to, and he looked so totally undefended and different from any time I'd seen him that I said, George, I got to take a picture. And
Beautiful.
I did.
At the same shoot, you also captured Paul McCartney.
Not the same, on Help, yes. That was terrific. We were on, well, this is George at home, and here on the boat, we were going to a location, and Paul started telling a story with gestures and joking, and as you see, John was roaring with laughter. It was marvelous fun.
Some of your most treasured photos of John Lennon are from '65, at home with his family, which is a place we didn't get to see him a lot.
Nobody got to see him. Evidently, I was the first photographer to go into their homes.
That's Julian, his son there, and Cynthia, his first wife.
They'd never even allowed a British photographer into the Beatles' homes. I went over to visit George. George said, let's go over to John's. We went over to John's, and he took his guitar, it was in his car, and Patty came with him. And while Patty and Cynthia were talking about curtains in the living room, John and George started riffing, and Julian started watching. I loved it.
Is it striking you at the time how special and how unique your position is in the world of history?
It strikes me now. It did not then. I just was visiting friends. I loved it. I had no idea what that was.
Henry, why did you not show these pictures for so long? 7,000 images, only probably a few dozen saw the light of day.
After Life magazine syndicated them around the world, after the article ran, I got the negatives and slides back and put them away because I was busy traveling and working. I was going to the White House. I was taking pictures of Broadway shows and all this kind of stuff. There wasn't time for me to do anything. I didn't have a studio, so to speak, to set up with people to publish, and I didn't even know about publishing books at that time.
When these came out now, what did you think when you saw them all again after all this time?
I love it, and looking through the book is like visiting with old friends. And the pictures you're seeing right now this was in Wales. They were sitting down for a tea time meal,